I was going to wrap up, but since Mr. Gohmert wanted to chime in, I couldn't help but contemplate some of the words that he just uttered, about taking January 6th seriously and being horrified by the violence that occurred that day. I mean, I'm looking at an article in the Texas Tribune from June 23rd, 2022, titled, U.S. Rep. Louis Gohmert asks Trump for a pardon after insurrection, January 6th committee reveals. And so I would love, if he would like to appear on screen again virtually, for him to answer the question of whether it's true or not that he asked the former president for a pardon with respect to his conduct in connection with January 6th. But as I wait for him to appear on screen, I do want to proceed. These are the facts. On January 6th, at the direction of Donald Trump, a violent mob stormed the Capitol in an attempt to change the results of a free and fair presidential election. In the process, 138 Capitol and D.C. police officers were injured. A Capitol police officer was bludgeoned to death, and 2 more Capitol police officers died by suicide in the days that followed. Many of us in this room nearly died. Can you please treat what happened with the seriousness that it deserves? That is all I ask of my Republican colleagues. This resolution of inquiry is an absurdity, and it makes a mockery of people who sacrificed so much for us and for this country on January 6th. Would you please stop choosing Donald Trump over the American people? Liz Cheney, who until recently, until you kicked her out, she was the chair of the House GOP caucus, recently shared a story from her experience on January 6th. In the cloakroom that day, one of the Republican members signing up to object to the 2020 presidential election results muttered out loud, "The things we do for the orange Jesus."
Would the gentleman yield for a question?
1 second. This loyalty to orange Jesus, Mr. Bishop, is going to ruin our democracy. And more innocent lives are going to be lost in the process if you guys keep this up. It is not too late to join House Democrats in honoring our oath to the Constitution. And yeah, I will yield to you.
Forgive me, I wasn't listening. We were conversing a bit. But did I hear, and I think, did you say that a police officer was bludgeoned to death by the crowd at the January 6th riots?
I said a police officer was bludgeoned to death. I did not say at the hands of whom, Mr. Bishop.
Just who are you referring to, if you don't mind saying?
I can get that information for you in a few minutes.
Well, I just want to make sure, because
are you denying that that at least one Capitol police officer was murdered in the midst of what happened on January 6th?
Yeah, I think I am denying. I mean, here's what I understood, that there were reports early on that Sicknick was struck with a fire extinguisher, and that subsequently was debunked as false. He died of natural causes that were not connected to the event. Are we talking about the same person, Sicknick, or are we talking about somebody else? Seriously, I mean,
it's a genuine question, because the medical examiner, the U.S. Capitol Police put out a report agreeing with the medical examiner finding the USCP officer Brian Sicknick died of natural
Bishop,
causes.
well, just an initial thought, and I know that Mr. Roy, you too are an attorney. Mr. Bishop speaks often about how brilliant of an attorney he is. We're talking about but-for causation of Officer Sicknick's death, and so I would hope that you would at least concede, at a minimum, that Mr. Sicknick died as a result of what happened on January 6th. And I'm disappointed if you would suggest otherwise, sir.
Well, I mean, look, I don't think that's correct either, but was he bludgeoned to death? Is that, because I think Ms. Demings was even looking at, we were sotto voce between me and her saying he was. I'm sincere as I can be. My understanding is that was debunked, and Mr. Roy just read the medical examiner's information. Do you guys contend that he was bludgeoned to death?
I contend that 138 Capitol and D.C. police officers were injured, and that multiple Capitol police officers died as a direct result of what happened on January 6th. And I hope that you—
It's your time. You don't have to answer.
I hope you can see how one would question the sincerity of such a minute point in the midst of the gravity of everything else.
Would the gentleman yield?
Yeah.